Boa tarde, obrigado para o convite. I am sorry that I cannot be there in person to talk to you, but that is me speaking at another Passivhaus conference in Seattle last year. I was really intrigued by your program, the issues being discussed, including the role of mobility, the integration of vehicle and home, but in particular the issues of the role of architecture in the performance of buildings, and very much what is the building of the future going to be like. I note that you were previously talking about the integration of the car and the house and the future of mobility. I want to talk about that because mobility is in fact key to the design of our homes. Elon Musk has a vision of the future we want, or what he calls the future we want. His vision is a future with electric cars in the garage, big batteries on the garage wall, and big roofs on big houses covered with big solar panels. And oh, how the people just eat this up. This is the future they want. This is the American dream. Everyone loves net zero too, where they put enough solar panels on the roof to generate enough electricity to offset their use. So what if they have a wall of glass and rafters sticking through the wall, a detail right out of the 60s? It's net zero. We have to think about a different future we want, one that doesn't involve big roofs with big solar panels. It's why I love Passivhaus so much. It's not about a phony balance of how many panels and how much consumption, but it's about a real radical reduction of demand, about using less. Because we have to use less of everything. We also have to worry more about building multifamily housing, not single homes in the country. Elon Musk, with his fast cars, doesn't understand the future I want. I know the issue of mobility of the future was discussed earlier, and I believe it's going to dramatically affect the design of our cities and our homes. As self-driving technology becomes common, people's cars are going to turn into mobile living rooms, and eventually, as in this image from Renault, the car will actually become part of our homes, plugging right in. The car seat is probably the most comfortable seat we own, so Hyundai proposes that a car just clip onto the side of your home and you can use that chair anytime the car is part of the living room. In fact, there's no reason for our entire home to become mobile, for our living room to be mobile. We might just travel in it all the time, sleeping while the house drives itself to where we want to wake up. Or we might end up parking our homes for the night, like this wonderful scheme from about 5 years ago by Portuguese designers Filipe Magalhães and Ana Luísa Soares. I really loved the way, basically, they just inhabited a concrete frame with their little mobile houses. It's certainly not a new idea. Archigram proposed it back in the 60s. It is, to my mind, the logical extension of the idea of self-driving electric cars. They offer a new kind of freedom, but they also trap you. I want a different future. I want a future where it is safe for people of any age to ride a bike anywhere they want to go. The future I want is based around efficient technologies that don't need big batteries and don't take up a lot of space. But a future designed for bikes also means a future of multifamily buildings of some density, a density high enough that you don't have to drive. In fact, the future I want is very different from the future Elon Musk wants. His dream houses are all smart and high-tech and full of electronics. But I have called Passivhaus a dumb house where a smart thermostat would be bored stupid with nothing to do. Seriously, what's a smart thermostat going to do in a Passivhaus like this one in Seville where the temperature inside never changes? Smart technology works best in really terrible, leaky buildings. Instead of smart cars, smart houses, and smart cities, we should go back to basics. One of the basics that I think is going to become very important in the future is the issue of health. I believe our clients, the people, are going to become obsessed with it. I'm not alone in this. Passive House architect L. Ron Burrell and I were tweeting about this, and he agreed that the best Passive House designs also took embodied energy into account, had a walkable location, and were made with non-toxic, healthy materials. So, for example, you wouldn't put a gas stove or a range inside a passive house as there is in this one, because gas stoves put out a lot of nitrogen dioxide and carbon monoxide, and the vent fans rarely work well. It should be made of natural materials with low embodied energy. Portuguese cork is actually my favorite insulation, if only I could afford it. And of course it has to be walkable because the car is one of our biggest consumers of energy. I actually wanted to call this all an L. Ron standard after L. Ron the architect, not the elf. Dr. Feist was involved in our tweeting, and he did not agree that we needed a change in the standard. He thought we have to concentrate on energy efficiency to meet our goals of carbon reduction. But I still think that these are critical issues that every passive house designer should be thinking about. So if I was building my dream passive house, it would, of course, as I just said, be passive, but it would also be built of wood. Here, this one is made out of cross-laminated timber, solid wood, which of course is hugely popular these days. I would insulate it in a material with low embodied energy, preferably cork. It might even be built on stilts, like this passive house, to reduce the amount of concrete needed and to eliminate the need for any plastic foam underground. And most importantly, it would be healthy, because the next big thing that is going to affect all of us and everything we do and everything we design is antibiotic resistance. It's affected us in the past. Ever since Louis Pasteur and Koch, people have known that many diseases are caused by bacteria. One of the worst was tuberculosis, which, once they figured out that bacteria caused it, did their best to avoid it by keeping places really clean, having lots of light and fresh air. Between the two world wars, the death rate from the disease was cut in half just by building better housing, having better sanitation, and being obsessed with cleanliness. Architecture was profoundly affected, particularly when these sanitariums were built, all full of glass to let in light and air. This one by Decorreu, built in the Netherlands, was particularly influential. It's not a coincidence that the great modern houses of the post-World War I period were designed for doctors, like this one. It was raised up on pilotis to provide an actual separation between the corrupted and poisoned earth and the city and the pure fresh air and sunlight of the atmosphere above it. The Level Health House was designed by Notre to maximize sunlight and to be easy to clean. My favorite is the Maison de Verre. Servants could actually remove the stair treads and take them off to the lower level for washing them. Every portion of the house could be disinfected. The design of our furniture was also affected. Mies van der Rohe wrote about tubular modern furniture, like this was designed for Thanet. It facilitates the cleaning of rooms and avoids inaccessible dusty corners. It offers no hiding place for dust and insects, and therefore there is no furniture that meets modern sanitary demands better than tubular steel furniture. There have been all kinds of wonderful stories and explanations of why Le Corbusier put a sink in the hall at the Villa Savoye, but it all comes down to a very simple one. The client was a doctor who believed that the first thing you do when you come home is wash your hands. Then antibiotics came along, and everybody stopped worrying about this. We are left with this idea of minimalist design and minimalist interiors, and we forgot the reason that it was all developed in the first place. We are all going to have to start thinking like Mies and Korb and Giraud, and again start designing our houses to be minimal, washable, and healthy, and have really good air filters. Of course, I could be totally wrong about the future. It could instead be a fabulous world of electric self-driving cars that you park in the living room of your solar-powered, super smart house in the country. But I don't think so. I think instead we should be planning to build walkable, natural, healthy, and of course, good old dumb passive house.